and welcome to our October 27th supplemental meeting. We'll get started with our first public hearing in a minute, but I want to remind everyone who wishes to speak during our public hearings that you keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. To speak, you raise your hand by clicking the participants tab at the bottom. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. You click on that and you find your name in there and click on that, and then you'll see a more prompt and it says there's a little icon to raise your hand, and you'll be called upon by Hudson Tech, who runs our meeting, who will unmute your mic and allow you to speak. Board members and applicants, you will automatically be unmuted by us unless you have muted yourselves, but understand that if you mute yourselves, Hudson Tech is going to have to unmute you. So we clear with the rules of the road on muting, unmuting, and how to participate. Okay, so we are hoping to conclude tonight's meeting by no later than 9 p.m., this agenda, with the understanding that any application that needs further input from the public will be continued. The public hearing will be continued at our next planning board meeting, which is on Tuesday, November 10th at 6 p.m. So we're really anxious to hear from everybody who wants to speak at our public hearings, but sometimes these meetings go on for 4 and 5 hours, and we're trying not to let that happen tonight. But I want you all to rest assured that we want to hear you, we want to know what you have to say, and we encourage you to make sure that you participate in these meetings. So with that, I'd like to open our first public hearing. So board, may I have a motion to open the public hearing on 347 Warren Street, a site plan application from Back Bar to permanently expand its current eating and drinking establishment to the front north side of its property. May I have a motion?
Moved.
Thank you, John. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, let's go. John Friedman, I believe you are here on behalf of Back Bar. I see that you're muted. There you are.
Yeah, I am.
Hi, John. Do you want to, just for purposes of anybody that's here for the public hearing, would you like to tell us a little bit about the proposal for Back Bar?
Well, we were before the planning board in April, maybe May, to get temporary approval to do what we're doing right now, which is to serve outside on the northern portion of the property, which up until this year had not been used. And we've been serving on the east side. Every once in a while, we've been serving on the west side when I think mostly on the weekends. We haven't, broken any of the terms of that temporary authority that we got. And we haven't received any complaints as far as I know. I checked with the owners again today, and there were no new complaints. So we haven't got any complaints at all about this. They've been really careful about being quiet and being clean out there. And we want to make this permanent. We don't know how long the outside is going to be attractive for weather purposes, but once we stop serving out there, all the equipment that's outside will come in, all the temporary stuff, the furniture and such. And I think that the planters are probably going to stay where they are because they're pretty heavy. But all the other stuff will come inside or, into storage somewhere probably. And we're trying to keep it as healthy as possible and still continue to employ the same number of people, which we've been able to do so far this year. Our business results have been really satisfying as a result of this, and it's enabled us to actually increase all of our employees to a minimum wage of $15 plus healthcare. And we want to be able to continue to do that as well. And the only way we can really do that is to continue to use the outside as the weather permits. And so we'd like to make this permanent.
Thank you, John. So are there any comments from the public about this application? I am not seeing anybody. Shaheem, are you seeing anybody?
Nobody's raised their hand yet.
Okay. Seeing no comments, no hands raised. Board, do I have a motion to close the public hearing on 347 Warren Street?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
A second.
Thank you, Teresa. Any more conversation from the board?
I had a question. Assuming that we have a life after the corona, what happens to the outdoor space and the setup that you have now? And in particular, what happens to the total occupancy of the facility?
Well, the legal occupancy has never changed. It's just that there's CDC guidelines that we're being told to follow, which we are. So the CDC guidelines are 6 feet apart for people and tables. We actually have our tables, I believe, 10 feet apart. So if we were to bring them closer together, which I assume we would do, there would be an increase. On a square footage basis, which doesn't take into account, how the furniture is laid out. And you can ask the code enforcement officer about the niceties of that. I don't really know the building code as well as he does, obviously. But they're all factors that come into what the legal capacity is. But the legal capacity, I think, as a base rate is 15 square feet. So 6 feet is 36 square feet, 15 is a third of that. So theoretically, the total occupancy of the space would be 15, the total square footage of the space divided by 15, where the service is. So I don't know what that number is, but what we have approved with the SLA is the arrangement that you see. And we can't change that without going to them, and we can't change anything that's permanent without going to you. So my guess is that probably nothing is going to happen. We can't put any outdoor lighting. We can't put any music. So it's basically, found space. And people seem to enjoy using it primarily because it's spacious and outside.
John, your
It's gotten
occupancy,
cooler. People aren't outside anymore.
so your occupancy won't escalate by a factor of 15. I think that's sort of the point of Blair's question, without approval
Yeah,
by this
no.
board or the SLA.
No, I mean, if you look at it in terms of total square footage, initially back bar was really just a sliver and the area that's under the tent now. That expanded over the years to take in about 3/4 of that building now. And on the outside, we've always had access under our lease to the east side on the north, but the west we added once we got this approval. As part of this approval process, we got an amendment to our lease with the landlord, and we just basically tried to figure out a way to open up that space to survive, and we're not looking to create anything outside there beyond what you see already. Although we might want to add like a cornhole game, but we've discussed that before this board years ago, and we never pursued it. But we might want to do something like that because we're trying to think of things that would be more family friendly than just eating and drinking. But it's a little problematic having people play games during a pandemic. So for now, until life goes back to the way it was, I imagine when it gets warmer, we'll go back outside the way it is now. When it gets cooler, we'll go back inside to just what's under the roof and under the tent.
Barry, does that answer your question?
Well, I just want to make sure that if we, make the shift to a permanent approval of the outdoor space, that we, we really understand that once this world that we're living in is back to or different than it is now, that we don't wind up with 1,200 people in the space, or whatever the math winds up being, right? Because then I think there's a series of concerns that neighbors might have, that I want to make sure that we don't accidentally approve a significant increase in capacity once the restrictions are lifted.
So if I understand John correctly, they need to go back to the State Liquor Authority and to this board should their occupancy exceed what they're approved for right now. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, but I don't want to be misleading. I'm Mr. Bone. I mean, our occupancy now on the books is what the books say, not what the CDC says. Those CDC recommendations are imposed on us by executive order. Once that executive order goes away, we go back to whatever the book says. The book says 15 square feet per person in a restaurant like that with 2 bathrooms. But it could be more space. I don't know. Will they bloat out to 100% of that at some period in the future? I can't really speak to that because I don't make any decisions for my
Well,
clients.
maybe help me understand the application then a little bit better. So we're making the shift under the application to permanently allow the outdoor space that's currently being used. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that we're not doing that until the CDC rules change. We're doing that till infinity.
Yes. Yes, but we have no interest in creating grief for our business. I mean, as a licensee, I think you really have to try and understand what they've done in the past in order to be good neighbors in terms of noise and lighting. And we've worked really closely with this board in the past and with the CEO's office and with the neighbors directly to fashion and put in place some mitigation efforts, and we've agreed to shut down early. Like we don't serve outside after, I think it's 10 p.m. And after 10 p.m., the doors close, the overhead doors all close, and there's no outside music at all of any kind, amplified or unamplified. Our lighting plan isn't changing, and it's not really, we rely on street lighting on the front. So, I guess I would, I understand your concern, and I'm pretty sure my clients do as well. And I would just say that, look at our track record with the city and working with the neighbors and being good neighbors and running a clean house and keeping things very orderly. I'm not saying there weren't issues in the past, but when they arose, we addressed them. It took some time sometimes. But in terms of capacity issues, I mean, if the CEO said to us, you guys are creating a nuisance, we know how to solve that immediately. We don't have to buy anything to solve that. We don't have to install anything to solve that.
Betsy, can I interject for a second? It's just a technical question. Laura texted me saying she's muted and you'd have to unmute her, I believe. Pardon for interruption, but she wants to join and seems to be muted.
Okay, Saheem, you could take care of Laura Margolis, please. Thank you, Clerk.
Sure.
Are there any, Larry, does that answer your concerns? Are you ready to move ahead?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Laura.
I just wanted to ask John about the games. Is that something that we have approved? And if we haven't, Betsy, is that something that we would have to approve before they can participate in the games or put up the games?
I don't know that answer. It seems to me that, but I'm not a lawyer, that any game like cornhole or something that would be allowed in a park would be perfectly appropriate. I think if they wanted to create a skating rink, that would be a very different thing. Right? But cornhole or,
Well, we know a skating rink is definitely
I
a
think for
different thing, because we did think of that as well.
I
just the
think
But,
liability is outrageous.
Well, and it generated a lot of interest in Albany, but it's really impractical. So we're not going to do that, and we're not going to consider doing that anymore. But cornhole, we don't need the SLA's approval. It's not a game of chance. It's not covered under the city code. It would just be there like a pinball machine, except it would be free. And if people were there eating and their kids were getting rambunctious, it would be there essentially for that. But again, until there's a solution to the problem with people getting too close to each other that way, we're not going to institute any games, because people have to stay in their seats. So.
Does that answer your question, Laura? I've never seen anything in the city code about this, other than the games of chance.
I think I remember that the time that Back Bar came to us and there were, I guess, a couple of different games that they were considering. I think that at that time, it would have, at least it was proposed to us that it would have our approval, but then I think Back Bar decided not to do that anyway, so we never really dealt with it. So I just was wondering.
Well, that was in the context of opening up the northeastern portion of the property, which is where we're mostly serving outside right now, the larger portion. And we decided against that at the time because we were dealing with issues about noise in the rear. And we were spending a lot of money on a rubber wall that we installed along the back fence to absorb a lot of that noise. And that seemed to solve a lot of the problems. But we didn't have the money to deploy for the games in the front of the house at that point. So that's why that didn't go anywhere. We did come to this board, this may be 2 or 3 years ago now, about that particular project, but it's been shelved. But we might want to put games outside if there's room, and we want this to be family friendly. It's not just a bar with food.
Let's remember too that they are subject to all the noise ordinances in the city.
I'm sorry, was there a question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Just a comment that you are subject to all the noise ordinances in the city.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I think that, the reality is that the city can't really enforce those because they don't have the equipment, or there's some question about its calibration. The neighbors are really good at letting you know when you're too loud, though. So we make a point of not being loud at all outside because we want to get along with the neighbors more than we want to have a bustling business outside.
And for the board to know, I did reach out personally to several of the neighbors who had spoken up at public hearings in the past, and let them know about tonight and if they had any questions. And one had a question or two, which I forwarded to John, and I assume those were answered between them to that neighbor's satisfaction, because I have not heard from them again. So we have a motion and a second. Is this board prepared to vote? I think so. Okay. All right. I have a resolution here that I will read to you all. I'm sorry, with the city email being down today, I could not get it to you in advance, and I apologize about that. Normally I would have.
Betsy, because we had a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Do we need to vote on that?
You're absolutely right. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for watching me. All right, motion to close the public hearing. Gramco, aye. Bound.
Aye.
Odie. Oh, John Cody is muted. Shaheen, may we unmute him, please? Just give me a thumbs up.
Thank you.
John.
I'm okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There you are.
I say yes.
Okay, thank you. Teresa Joyner.
Yes. Yes.
Laura Margolis.
Yes, and Clark is muted by the host now again. Clark is muted. Oh,
Okay. I'm
Steve
back on again.
Okay,
Stein,
Yes.
and Clark Weeman.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the public hearing is closed. I now would like to read a resolution that's been prepared by our attorneys. I'm sorry to do this to you all, but I'll make it as quick as I can. Resolution for modification of site plan at 347 Warren Street, outside courtyard area operations. Whereas the applicant Spirits Vittles and Strangelove LLC, DBA Back Bar, has applied to Hudson Planning Board to make permanent a temporary site plan approval granted on May 18th, 2020 that allowed operations at the outside courtyard area of their location, now known as The Project, located at 347 Warren Street, Hudson, New York, in the Central Commercial Zoning District. And whereas the applicant previously received site plan approval on April 12th, 2018, which included special operating conditions, and whereas the applicant received a temporary site plan approval on May 18th, 2020 to allow expanded use of the outdoor area due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and now desires to make that temporary approval permanent. And whereas the Hudson Planning Board considered the application at its meeting in September 2020, and whereas a duly noticed public hearing was held during which all who wished to speak were heard, and whereas the project is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker, and whereas the project requires Hudson Planning Board approval pursuant to 325.35 of the City Code, whereas the Hudson Planning Board has reviewed the criteria for site plan approval set forth in 325-35, and now therefore be it resolved that the Hudson Planning Board hereby grants permanent site plan approval as presented on the modified site plan for the previously temporarily permitted use of the site, and finds that the project satisfies the site plan approval criteria set forth in 325-35H of the zoning code, subject to the following conditions. The operations of the outside courtyard to permit usage of that area used by patrons shall cease no later than 11:59 p.m. from Sunday to Wednesday nights and 2 a.m. on Friday, Thursday closing, Saturday, Friday closing, and Sunday morning, Saturday closing. After the aforementioned times of closing, all the windows and doors to the courtyard shall be closed and remain closed. I think this is wrong. I think outdoor courtyard is 10 p.m., not 11:59 p.m. Is that correct? Sorry.
We
believe it was-
stop serving outside after 10, and then there's, we close the outside, I think, at midnight, meaning, people who are still there are told to leave, time to go, come inside or go home or go somewhere else.
Okay, I may make a quick amendment to that. Board, don't let me forget that.
Well,
So,
could we-
It's whatever the terms were from the prior approval.
Yes.
Whatever those are, that's all that we're doing there. It's the same hours.
So Betsy, I think we should check that out before we approve this tonight, just so you know. I mean, we don't
Yeah,
have,
sorry.
Well, you can just say that you're continuing, that the operational limitations that apply to the previously approved outdoor operation apply to all outdoor operation.
just a second, John, you might have to say that again. Do you need a,
Simply that what's already been approved for outdoor operation applies to this space as well. For the permanent outdoor, which is the southeastern quarter of the property.
So the operations of the outside courtyard to permit special uses of the area must comply with operational limitations per the original site plan approval.
is that right?
Good?
Is that good, John?
Yeah, I think that's the spirit of what we agreed to, yes.
Okay. After the aforementioned times of closing, all the windows and doors to the courtyard shall be closed and remain closed. After 10 p.m. every day, 2 of the 3 current window doors must be closed and remain closed. The 2 closed doors shall be the 2 closest to Cherry Alley. Applicant agrees to obtain Hudson Planning Board approval if an applicant wants to change any of the current 3 window doors to the courtyard. Applicant will use its best efforts to communicate with its neighbors and further mitigate noise originating from the operations on its property. There shall not be any music, acoustic or amplified, recorded or live in the outside courtyard area at any time. The outer row of speakers in the indoor area of the property shall be turned off at 10 p.m. every night. The expanded time regarding the courtyard operation stated in number 1 above is conditional upon the applicant completing the following on or before April 11th, 2019. Nope, he picked up. So this is, never mind. 8 is stricken.
That was, I think, the soundproofing
It
requirement.
was, and you've done it. It was. So that is stricken. So may I take a vote, please?
I'm sorry, I have a comment.
Yes.
For one, I don't know how, Clark continues to get muted. And he's texting me, so.
If he mutes himself, he can't unmute himself.
But just stay live, Clark.
Yeah, sorry, I was just losing connection. I think when I drop off, then when I got back on, the muting happened. So I
Okay, well,
hopefully
just
better Wi-Fi.
Shaheen, I think you have Shaheen's text. Just text him.
Okay.
But Betsy, I have another comment. I read the message you sent us about council advising that we do away with the 10-day write-in period.
Right.
And, I very, very adamantly disagree with that. Not everybody is computer savvy. Not everybody is here all the time. These are exceptional times to not give the public that 10 days. I think that we should make it standard that 10 days of public comment is standard for all of our applications.
Well,
There's nothing that says that it's illegal for us to do that. And I think that we are not giving the public the opportunity to fully, contribute their thoughts and ideas without that 10-day thing.
I think this really applied to type 2 applications that do not have seeker implications for us, Laura.
Okay.
In order to not put an undue time constraint on applicants that are type 2 applicants. Certainly type 1 and unlisted applicants, we would extend the 10-day period for sure. But I think the point was that we have put this in the paper well before the meeting, that we give everybody an opportunity to weigh in either at these meetings or in writing to me. And the feeling is that the board extends itself maybe over more than we should to accommodate public comment. Not that we don't like it and appreciate it, but for type 2 applications, maybe it just slows down the process too much. Now, so let's get back to this. We're doing this. That's sort of a different subject. Would you be comfortable, Laura, approving this, taking a vote on this application tonight, so that we can move this particular one?
Mhm.
Okay. So may I have a motion to accept the resolution as amended?
Oh,
Clark, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
John, thank you. All right, the vote. Graham Coe, aye. Bound,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Margolis,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Weeman.
yes.
Okay. John,
Thank you very
congratulations.
much.
Absolutely. I will get this resolution to you ASAP. Okay. And
Mhm.
we'll get together so that I can stamp the plans again.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Okay.
evening.
Take care. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Board, onward we go. So board, I have a question for you before we open our next public hearing. We do also have the 735 Columbia Street on our agenda that technically falls under old business. If you all feel that there's going to be significant conversation about that, we will leave it as old business and leave it where it is on the agenda. If you think that we can move this application along quickly, we can move it up on our agenda.
Move it up, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, Christina, is that okay with you? Are you ready? Okay. All right, so we will amend our agenda to move the application for 735, 737 Columbia Street, a site plan application from 735 Columbia Street LLC to convert an existing auto service center into a bar, restaurant, and brewery with an event space. Public hearing comments closed on October 23rd. There were no additional written comments. Do I have a motion to, well, the public hearing is closed, but to accept this application as complete and ready for action by this board?
I move.
Laura, thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Steve, thank you. Any comments from the board on this application or questions?
Yeah, I've remained concerned and frankly, maybe even opposed to the site plan as proposed. I just don't understand why we have parking in front of the building. I walked the site again this week and there's a kind of row happening there between Relish and Little Deb's and now this venue. And it's, it's a nice little urbane spot potentially in town. And I think that the parking out front is an essentially suburban act. Parking is not required. I don't understand why we have it. I asked this 2 months ago. I don't feel like the applicant addressed my comments, questions, and concerns. And I just think it's a really bad site plan. I mean, I really don't think it's a good idea.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Sure.
Well, I mean, essentially, number one, we're not changing the front asphalt. That's all remaining. And the only improvements to the front is a slight reshaping of the planting bed in order for the parking to function properly and in order to allow proper access into the site and not block the driveway. And then furthermore, there's simply not enough room in the back with the positioning of the buildings to safely allow parking. So,
well, back bar doesn't have parking. You don't need parking.
We want to have some parking, Larry. I mean, Teresa and I were there with them and they walked us around, and I don't disagree with you, Larry, but I thought that the way it was described to us when we were there, made sense. I don't know.
Oh, the applicant has made their application. I don't support it, and that's fine. I mean, I'll vote when it comes time to vote.
My thought is that it's a filling station. It was a filling station, so it kind of goes with the theme to me to have it open in the front like that with the filling station sign. And I don't see a problem with it. And my big bugaboo about most of these things is parking. So if you're providing your own, then yeah, it's not so bad.
Get a comment from the board.
I mean, in a sense, Larry, I see the point you're making, and I even agree with it to some extent. I guess I sort of have an issue with where we are in the process, though, of rejecting the site plan, since we've already taken the opportunity to review that at previous meetings. I guess you had the feeling that wasn't addressed adequately.
Right. I mean, I know, and I even brought up the point that the hotel, we had both board commentary and public commentary, and that applicant made considerable measures to address the concerns. This applicant has frankly blown off the concerns, ignored them, and I don't like it. I mean, it's not, to me, it's not how, I mean, we're a planning board, and what the choices that we make shape the future development of the town. And that's already a tenuous part of town where the grain and the fabric of the town starts to dissipate along Green Street. And this is a real opportunity to make a pedestrian friendly environment that would, really connect City Park all the way up to Relish, and, to lose that opportunity and to have an applicant that doesn't treat seriously the question, I don't like it.
Well, I hardly think that we've blown off your concern. In fact, after you raised that point, which I believe was 2 meetings ago, we've been, you know, in front of this board, I think 4 times at this point. We invited you all to come tour the site with us, and we had a number of board members take us up on that, where we were able to you know, to give them a tour of the site and explain the site plan in detail. And as I remember, you were not present during those 2 meetings, which we had on 2 different days in order to be accommodating to everyone. So I really don't think we've blown off your comments as you mentioned.
Christina, can you tell us again, because I've actually forgotten how many parking spaces you have in the front?
Absolutely. We have a total of 7 spaces. 1 is an accessible parking space, and then 6 of them are standard spaces.
And included in that area are also some tables and things like this, right, in the front?
That's correct. There's right in front of the overhead doors, there's going to be tables out on the sidewalk area and planters, creating a buffer between the building and the parking area.
Can you bring up the site plan that shows that?
Sure. So this is the area, this is the existing parking lot that is getting a new planting area in the front. It's getting new plantings in the existing planting bed along the side. And then here in the front is the planters and the area of tables and chairs.
Can you, it's hard for me to see, you know, can you zoom in? So how wide is that space?
The table space, Larry? The place with the seating area you're talking about?
Yeah, the so-called seating area. How wide is that?
I don't have an exact measurement, but it looks to be about 5 feet wide or so, 6 feet.
Right, so you can't walk there and sit there.
That's correct. There are going to be tables, along this area. It's actually, I think, a little easier to see in the rendering.
Sure.
So let's see. You can see that if I zoom in here, so you've got an area of planters, which create a barrier between that seating area and the parking area. And then there'll be enough room for the the people that are sitting at these tables to get up and walk away. But this is not meant to be a major traffic aisle. You're going to come in the front door in this direction, and then you're going to probably come out to these tables and chairs through the overhead doors when they're open.
Okay.
More comments from the board. Thank you, Christina.
I want to comment too. I also appreciate Larry's concern, and I think many of us are urbanists, very much in favor of converting, oftentimes excess asphalt to other uses that are maybe a little more pedestrian and human scale and friendly. I guess my own sense, and maybe I'll reflect what John said. I mean, it's an old auto body shop or a filling station, and no doubt that was used for those functions for parking. And I would, my concern sort of as like a business owner, whether that's all some other function, clearly that's an additional burden on them, whether it's more staff or more volume of whatever for people to be using that space, say if it was seating. So I would be concerned about occupancy and whether or not that would even be viable. Again, I get it. That'd be nice if it was something else that was less suburban. I'm not sure how you change that now.
I mean, something I've always liked about this site plan is that they've shown a sort of respect for the existing structure and maintained it.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
yeah, I mean, so I guess in that sense, I think that's always colored my sort of impression of the application too. Is that I'm reflecting, I guess, or echoing what other board members have said. I think that the previous usage and then seeing what it's turned into, I think is something that I'm supportive of. But I don't know, Larry, I do think you're making an important point here. And it's something that we should, I think, take into consideration on applications. So I applaud you for for taking this stance.
Can I ask a question? My question is, Larry, can they, like, okay, now it's going to be a parking lot, but later could it be that they use the outside space like the back bar did? Because I think prior to it becoming outside space, wasn't that a parking lot or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So could that happen here?
They would have to come back to us for approval, Teresa. Because it would be a change of use of that space.
That the business grows, and since they don't have to have parking, they could come back to us, and this plants an idea in their minds. That's a possibility.
Okay, board. Any more comments on this application? All right, the public hearing has been closed and we have passed the time for public comments. So I will read you a resolution prepared by attorneys, again, with apologies to all that I couldn't get to you today.
Betsy, I can share it if
Oh, that would be great, Victoria. Thank
that
you.
helps.
That would help a lot. All right. Should I read it as well, Victoria?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can.
Resolution to grant site plan approval and conditional use permit approval. Whereas the applicant 735 Columbia Street LLC, heretofore the applicant, has applied for a conditional use permit and site plan approval for manufacturing to convert an existing auto repair facility into a restaurant and brewery with event space, now known as The Project, on property located at 735 to 737 Columbia Street in the city of Hudson in the general commercial transitional zoning district. And whereas the project is depicted on a site plan entitled prepared by Christina Ducharme, Architecture PLLC, dated July 28, 2020, last revised August 26, 2020.
I'll add the title in. Sorry.
And whereas pursuant to section 325-162B2 of the city code, manufacturing limited to less than 10,000 square feet of floor area is permitted, subject to issuance of a conditional use permit. And whereas the applicant has submitted a short environmental assessment form dated July 24th, 2020. And whereas on September 8, 2020, the planning board classified the project as a type 2 action under seeker. And whereas a duly noted public hearing was opened on September 8, 2020 and closed on October 13, 2020 with written comments accepted for an additional 10 days. And whereas said public hearing was held remotely in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 and subsequent orders due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan approval and approves the conditional use permit for manufacturing as shown on the site plan and authorizes the chairperson or her authorized designee to sign the site plan after compliance with the following: payment of all fees and escrow, which has been done. Revision, but we'll double check. I think that's totally fine. And revision of the site plan to include the following note: there shall be no amplified music after 10 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve?
We just amended so that we delete that entitled in the second whereas.
Yeah.
I was actually going to, after you guys adopt it, I'll type in the title of the plans. I got them.
Can we just strike it? It's fixed on a site plan prepared by Christina Ducharme.
Okay, we can do that too. I mean, I can't do it on my computer here, but it is stricken.
Great, let it be stricken.
Do we have to seeker on this?
It's a type 2 action, so Victoria confirmed that we do not need to do seeker on this. Is that
You
correct?
declared it type 2 in September.
Okay,
So therefore,
just now I'm a little
we don't
concerned.
need,
When I say conditional use, I remember the city attorney saying that anytime it says conditional use, we have to do seeker. So I'm mixed up. But I guess we don't. So, okay. Do you know what I'm saying?
Was that a different city attorney? Did I say that?
Nope,
Yeah.
the city attorney,
Okay.
Cheryl said that.
So let's see, hold on, let me check. So it was declared type 2 because seeker was amended last year. And resolution to classify. There's now a provision in seeker which says reuse of a residential or commercial structure where the commercial use is permitted under the zoning law or ordinance, including by special permit, which is like a conditional use permit, and does not meet or exceed any thresholds for a type 1 action is a type 2 action under SECRA. So if something's on the type 2 list, it cannot become other than type 2. So I'd have to look at what your local law says, but that is why your board classified it as type 2, because you're reusing an existing structure without making any significant changes.
My comment was because at the meeting that we had, you weren't there, Victoria. I just remember ringing in my ear that if it's a conditional use, for one thing that whenever it says special use, by the way, we're to change that word in our head at least to conditional use. And if it's a conditional use, then it requires seeker. That's what I remember from that meeting. But there might be specifics that
Yeah, we can't
we
waive
can
it.
run this,
The
we
what?
can run the speaker questions.
Am I remembering that wrongly?
I mean, I can pull up the seeker regulations. It's if it's type 2, then that's it. There's nothing for the board to do. So
Okay.
if you agree that this fits within the type 2 classification of reuse of a residential or commercial structure where the commercial use is permitted under the zoning law or ordinance, including by special permit, and does not meet or exceed any thresholds for a type 1 action, then it's type 2. So, you know, if this was going to create, you know, if it exceeded height requirements or had some other thresholds. Let me see if I.
As long as it's an attorney saying.
I think Laura, Victoria is our attorney and we can take her advice on this.
Yeah, I agree. As long as an attorney's saying it, I'm fine.
Yep, me too. So we have a motion. May I have a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
So moved.
Laura, a second, please.
Second,
Oh, Larry.
Larry, okay. I will call the vote. Gramco, aye. Bound.
no.
Cody,
Yes.
Joyner,
Is that a yes, Teresa?
Yes.
Yes.
Margolis,
Yes.
Dime,
Yes.
and Weeman. Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations all.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. I will get you the resolution as amended, and Christina, you and I need to make a plan to get together so I can stamp your plans. So
Absolutely.
we will be in.
We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks very much.
Have a
Good
good night.
luck. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. thank you, everybody, for your patience. I do very much appreciate it in the reordering of our agenda tonight. So we are moving on. I will remind everybody that we are going to ask for a 3-minute maximum comments, please. We will be timing them. And I wanted to say a couple of things about the upcoming application that I think are important to note about this application. First, I want everybody on this call to understand that the planning board has hired the services of a telecommunications expert who is consulting with us throughout this process. Second, I want to dispel a myth. Verizon is applying to install 4G equipment, not 5G, as has been going around town. And finally, I want you all to understand that the planning board is prohibited by federal law to consider the health impacts of telecommunications installations. We are severely constrained by the FCC. So so that you all understand what we can't consider as members of this board. So I would like a motion to open the public hearing on 119 Columbia Street, a special use permit application from Bell Atlantic Mobile Systems LLC, DBA Verizon Wireless, to install and operate wireless communications equipment on the roof of 119 Columbia Street, Providence Hall. Do I have a motion?
Can I ask a question for just, so
I think we need to open. Okay, go ahead.
Is the application complete?
Yeah.
So the application is missing some technical information, which has been requested. This board chose to schedule the hearing early on so that it could begin receiving public comments.
So we need to give the public an additional chance to weigh in once the application is complete? Is that?
The chairperson has already indicated that this public hearing will be extended.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that there was information, because my understanding was that there was information we were expecting from the applicant that we hadn't received yet, and I wanted the public to know that more information is forthcoming and that the public hearing will continue beyond this evening. That's correct.
Absolutely, it is. It will not be closed this evening. The application at this point is incomplete. And Ms. Graham-Cow, once you open the public hearing, it might be helpful to have the applicant just make a quick presentation for the public.
So, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move we open the public hearing.
I'll second
Do I have
it.
a second? Thank you, John. Okay. Is
All in
Scott
favor?
also here tonight?
All in favor?
Oh, sorry, all in favor? Say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Is Scott Olson here, or who is representing Verizon tonight?
Allison Phillips.
Allison. Okay, Shaheem, would you please unmute Allison? Thank you. Welcome, Allison.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm an attorney with Young Summer. I work with Scott, and I'm appearing on behalf of the applicant tonight. And I'd be happy to just give a brief overview of the application before we open the floor up to the public's comments. This is the installation of 6 antennas on an existing structure located at 119 Columbia Street. That's the Providence Hall building. There are 6 antennas, but they're actually located on 3 different sectors. So 2 antennas per sector, and those are non-penetrating ballast. So they will be, placed on the top of the building, not affixed to the facade of the building or installed in a manner that penetrates the building rooftop. The antennas will be an overall height of 58.9 feet. To the center line of the antenna is 55.2 feet. And then the top of the roof is 49.6 feet. So the antennas themselves will extend approximately 9 feet above the top of the roof on the existing 6-story building. We submitted an application to the city for a site plan approval and special use permit. The application materials contain detailed zoning drawings, but also reports from our demonstrating our RF compliance, FCC emissions compliance. Also some point of view site simulations to give the board and the public an idea of where the antennas will be visible from nearby structures and locations in the immediate vicinity of the proposed installation.
Can you share those now? I think the public might want to see that.
Okay, let's see if I can get that up. And I will apologize. I'm one of those people that we mentioned earlier that's not that computer savvy, but I'm going to give it a try here. Okay. And is there anything showing up by any chance?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can see
absolutely. Map with dots.
map.
Okay, so this is a map that's actually, this is part of what we have attached to our application as Exhibit 9. If you go through the photographs that are provided with this exhibit, it gives you different photo perspectives of the roof line where the antennas will be installed. So starting off, we have photograph number 1, looking southwest from State Street, west of the Bliss Towers building. As indicated in the caption, the proposed installation will not be visible from this location. Next, we have looking southeast from the intersection of North Front Street and Columbia Street. The proposed installation will be visible from that location. So the next slide I'm going to bring up is the simulation showing what the antenna will look like from this vantage point. Next slide is looking southwest from North 2nd Street, east of the Bliss Towers. The proposed installation will be visible from this location. And you can see it here in the simulation of photo 3. Next photograph is looking southwest from in front of number 212 State Street. The proposed installation will be visible from this location. I'm sorry, will be visible from this location. Here on S4, you have the simulation. Photograph 5 is looking northwest from the intersection of Columbia Street and North 2nd Street. The installation will be partially visible from this location. And next we have photograph 6 looking south from Southside Courtyard of Bliss Towers. Again, the antenna will be visible from this location. Will be partially visible from this location, I apologize. So there's no simulation because it's only a partial visibility. And then this is looking northeast from the intersection of North 2nd Street and Warren Street. The proposed antennas will not be visible from this location. Same with photograph number 8, looking northeast from the intersection of North 1st Street and Warren Street. Will not be visible from this location. Looking northwest from 228 Columbia Street. Will not be visible from this location. And this is looking northwest, I'm sorry, from 228 Columbia Street, will be visible from this location. And you can see the simulation here in the S9 photograph. 10th photograph is looking southeast along State Street. The installation will not be visible from this location. 11, looking northeast from 117 Warren Street. Will not be visible from this location. Looking northwest from the upper parking lot east of the hospital, will not be visible from this location. number 13, looking northwest from the upper deck of the parking garage, west of the hospital, will not be visible from this location. And then this is photo 14, looking west from the roof of Bliss Towers, which is the 9-story building across the street. The installation will be visible from this location, and you can see the proposed antennas in this simulated photograph S14.
Could you point out the 3 antennas there?
Yep, we have right here, which is right near this, the penthouse,
Right.
I believe here. Over here, you have one of the sectors, and then I believe right here.
And there's kind of a work, you know, an equipment. that's
There is
out.
there is an equipment platform. I believe that's located right here in the vicinity of this sector. The equipment platform is, you know, standard equipment necessary for the rooftop installation. There will not be a generator included. You know, there's only battery backup for these antennas. The next photograph, 15, looking southwest from the roof of Bliss Towers. The installation will be visible from this location. And again, the next simulation, you can see the proposed antennas here and here.
Also to the left.
I'm sorry.
Also one in front of the, there.
I'm sorry. And this may be the penthouse. I think I pointed to this before.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I apologize.
Isn't there one farther, you know, on the picture right? There's 2 on this end, from this picture on the left end, and then there's one further down.
Yeah.
Isn't there one way down here? Or is that it?
My understanding, Laura, understanding is that there's 4 locations, 3 9-foot towers, 2 of them by the bulkhead for the stairwell.
Right.
The equipment zone is in the middle, where the cursor is now.
Okay.
So
I apologize. So I think I was pointing at the equipment platform and instead of the antenna array over to this side.
All right, so I see the 2 by the stairway. Where's the one that's further that way?
Yeah, so
You
they
have
don't,
these 2,
all 4 don't appear in the same image.
right?
I'm just not seeing the 3rd one, guys.
So,
Sector.
So there are 2 on the far left near the stair bulkhead.
Right.
There's equipment in the middle, and then off the image to the far right is a 3rd one, which you see there.
Right. And I apologize for the confusion.
Yeah, okay.
I think I was talking about the equipment, equipment platform located here, and I think I referred to that as one of the sectors previously. I apologize for the confusion.
Right, but I just want to say that in the pictures that you've shown us so far, this may not make a difference in some of them, but really you've only pointed out in all those pictures one sector, not 3 sectors plus the equipment thing. And I also want to say that, and maybe I have this wrong, but when we did the walkthrough, I remember it being said that these sectors were 6 feet high, not 9 feet high. Am I misremembering that?
Well, I think that would be to the center line of the antenna. So again, I apologize for the confusion. The top of the roof is 49.6 feet high, and then to the center line of the antenna is 55.2 feet, about a 6-foot difference. And then I think on the other photographs we had shown, based on the different perspectives from the photographs, in some of the photographs, only, one of the actual antennas or the sectors was visible from the given point of view photograph.
I think you might want to make this more clear, in the next time we meet, so that we see all 4 structures that are going to be up there. But I don't want to spend the time to go relook at that now. Okay.
Unfortunately, we gave the different vantage points from the top of the Bliss Tower, the 9-foot building across the street. And because of the vantage points that were selected, all 4, the 3 sectors and the equipment platform, aren't all shown in one photograph.
Well, have you now gone through all the photographs? Because
Yes, those were all the photographs. I believe we've gotten through all of them. Yes, 15.
Okay, so I might have missed it, but if from the backs of the houses that are on Warren Street, that face this building, where is that photo?
Let's see.
So the backs of the houses on Warren Street. What is that, an alley there? What's between?
I haven't seen anything from that perspective, Laura, not in these photographs.
Well,
I think if you're standing in the,
I can pull up the map. The map we have here shows the different locations where the photos and the photo simulations were based on.
Could you make that bigger, hon? Thank you.
Sure. And then if there's any particular series of photos that you'd like me to go back to based on this map, I can scroll down to do that.
Well, I'd like for there to be a photo from the backyards of the houses that face this building on Warren Street, their backyards. That's not, when I was up there, and we all were up there, it was very clear that the people that live on Warren Street, from their back porches or their backyards, had a very clear view of the whole building, frankly, in many cases. So I find it curious that angle wasn't even approached in this presentation.
Can I just say something, Allison? This is Kathy Pompone. I'm the project manager. I was not on the site visit because I'm in Rochester. However, I've been doing this for 27 years. And when we do photo sims, we can't just enter property and trespass on people's property. That is not something that we can do. And I know that there was a very extensive site visit with members of the board.
I think you stand out there and take a photo up without trespassing on people's property.
From people's porches and backyards, no, we can't.
I would just correct one thing for the public record too. I was supposed to join on the site visit to do the photographs, but unfortunately, the people coming didn't coordinate with me. So a member of the planning board was not able to join for the photographs that were taken. So I just wanted to.
I know that some of the members of the board were there.
No.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe it was a design visit, but not the photo shoot. Steve Matthews, do you?
Correct. So,
can you chime in?
Hi, Steve Matthews with Tectonic Engineering. We prepared the drawings and simulations and structural calculations and all the technical data that went with that, minus RF. So the photo locations, we actually worked out with Mr. Stein before we visited the field. We gave him, I think, 1 or 2 days advance notice, and he didn't or wasn't able to walk the site with us when we took the pictures. Mr. Stein did provide the photos from Bliss Towers, which we used for the simulations. We did not enter that property, but what Ms. Pomponio said is correct. We are not able to walk on anyone's property to take pictures. That's frankly, it's trespassing.
I don't think anyone's asking you to trespass.
No, but from Columbia Street. From Prison Alley.
If you look at the photo map, we photographed 3 locations on Warren Street, and the antennas are not visible. Actually, I don't even think the building is visible because you have the buildings between Warren Street and Prison Alley and the trees that block the views of the building.
Steve, we were up there. We took a tour, Steve.
Right.
We took a tour.
I was
I'm
there
telling you,
with
you could have stood in Prison Alley, which is public property, and taken a picture up.
So just so I'm
Right.
clear, are you asking for an additional photo simulation from a location along Prison Alley?
I believe so. I mean, I live not too far from there. I can go look, but I believe that I could stand in Prison Alley and look up and at least get an idea of what you can see from the backs of the houses on Warren Street that face.
Which
May I
intersection on Prison Alley? North First?
May I interject here for a moment? I know that the some of the people that would like to speak tonight have done photo documentary evidence from their backyards and from their, so I believe we're going to be seeing those photographs from private property coming up.
If we don't, then yes, I would like to request additional photos, but we'll see what we see. Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah. So, Allison.
Yes.
Do you have more to share with us, or should we open for public comment?
Can I ask a question? Do you have a picture of the antenna, what it's going to look like? I have a drawing of it. Do you have an actual picture? What's
We've
You
included
mean a
in
spec
the-
sheet?
Hello?
Do you mean a spec sheet? Because the antennas were in the simulations. Are you
Uh,
looking for a close-up from a spec sheet?
No, I mean, are these the first ever for these antennas? Or do you have one that you took a picture of so I can see what it looks like?
Well, we included the photo simulations, which
Antenna. I have it in your drawing, but do you have a picture of the actual antenna? No.
well, I think, we don't have a photograph of the actual antenna, based on what it would look like, because these photo simulations are specific to, the arrays that we're proposing for this building. And so the photo simulations are really the closest that we can get to, a photograph of what these facilities will look like at this location.
Do you have, Allison, are you able to get a photo from a similar location with the understanding that it won't be an exact match? I think she's just trying to get an idea of what the general setup looks like.
Thank you.
Which is standard. I mean, just when we looked at the brewery, she had a rendering, which was lovely, lovely renderings. And then there was a photograph of the light fixture, right? So you can put in your brain, you can put together the visualization and then a close-up of the actual object, right? Standard way of showing people what something's going to look like. The faraway view and then the object itself.
Sure. I will consult with the applicant and see if that's something that we can provide.
I can answer that quickly. So Mike Musso's memo, the completeness memo, asked for cut sheets of the antennas and other units to be included with the application. We submitted revised materials last Friday, so I don't think it made it to the board. But all of that information is actually included in the drawings now. So if you haven't gotten those, I'm assuming you will soon, and all of that information is in there. There's cut sheets on the antennas, the mounts, the radio head units, I believe the equipment cabinets possibly, the platform, that's all in there. We actually did provide a view shed map showing which areas are visible. It's a zoomed in version of what Allison's showing there on her screen. So there was more material submitted. It was just that the memo came to us early last week and we responded at the end of last week. So it was 2 business days ago.
Who's talking?
Can you please tell me to whom that information was sent? Was it to Craig Hay, our CEO?
It was submitted to Young Summer, who I believe in turn submitted it to the board.
Okay, so it's at Young Summer. We have not seen anything.
Okay.
Mike Musso, do you have it?
Madam Chair, can I speak? Is that all right?
Yes, please.
And could you please stop sharing the screen, Verizon?
Yes.
Thank you. So just, Madam Chair, members of the planning board and members of the public, thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Mike Musso. I work on behalf of the city of Hudson, and I've been retained to review this application that's in front of you. I wanted just to take a few minutes, and I think this is the appropriate time. I've seen public comments that have come in. Those have been shared. I've obviously looked at the application materials that were filed. And I think there's been some excellent dialogue so far tonight. But I think perhaps it's good if I just run down what I've been tasked to do, my experience, and some of the information that's very much outstanding at this point. We all know Verizon's coming in, proposing literally adjacent to an historic district, albeit on a rooftop. But there is a bunch of information that we requested in early October. I haven't seen any of that yet as of this meeting. But essentially, our role at HDR would be to work on behalf of the city to do all of the necessary technical review and due diligence, compliance with the code, but also compliance with the federal rulings and mandates that, for better or for worse, do tie the hands of planning boards across the country somewhat. However, this application, I think, has a lot of review left to go with it and a lot of comments to hear based on the location of where it's being proposed, et cetera. What we'll ultimately look at is the need for this site, the visuals and configurations and alternatives, the compliance with the code, the radio frequency emissions, which, as the chair rightly so gave an overview at the very beginning, it's something that, based on federal law, a decision to deny an application cannot be based on health, the radio frequency emissions, if they're in compliance. But part of what I've been hired to do is to talk to that and to confirm that for this application. I want to mention also that I did attend a site visit on October 20th. I coordinated that with the applicant. There were 4 members from the planning board that were on that visit. We accessed the building and the roof. So if there's other questions about the specifics, I could certainly answer the proposed layout as it's proposed as of today, that is, on the rooftop. We did get a very good understanding of the configuration. As stated earlier, these proposed antennas, not towers, but antennas, will be situated on the east side of the roof, and one at the far end towards the river on the west side. There'd be a
Stop you for a minute. I want to ask a question.
Please, Teresa.
You gave 4 reasons. You said need for site, visual, radio emissions, and what was the 4th one? Or what was the 2nd one I missed?
The need and the justification of the site, the visuals and aesthetic, alternate sites,
okay,
and code compliance. Your code is a pretty good ordinance in terms of these wireless facilities, in that there's a priority schedule, highest to lowest, where the sites like this would be preferred or less preferred. The applicant right now is actually coming at the 2nd highest priority on an existing structure. A rooftop in a building qualifies as an existing structure. However, it's not the highest priority. So they have to go through that process of why or why not they can't move to the highest priority, as just one example.
Okay.
And I'll be taking my eyes off the screen, but just to read some of the things that we've asked for, and this is mainly regarding your code section 284.8I, which notes 20 different submittal items as part of a site plan special use permit. So some of the things we asked for, a copy or a redacted copy of the lease and a signed letter of authorization by the building owner. A statement that the applicant's wireless facility will, if it's ultimately approved and constructed, be maintained in a safe manner and with compliance with all the conditions of a special use permit. The size of the property in square feet and lot dimensions, that's just a code compliance. The sizes, Teresa, I think to your point, of all the proposed panel antennas, there are 6 panel antennas, 2, 2, and 2 at different parts of the roof. They weigh generally about 80 or 90 pounds. So there's also a structural analysis that's involved here that's been submitted. We did ask for the dimensions and the weights of all the antennas and the other ancillary equipment. And we did ask for cut sheets and spec sheets. So you could literally see them, what they look like, what the product looks like, not just on a drawing. We want to confirm that the drawings are inclusive of all of the following elements, really showing the proposed antenna locations, the structures and cabinets, and the relation of height to the penthouse and to the other architecture that exists on this specific rooftop. It has been confirmed that there's no backup generator, so that's something I had asked about. But there will be other requirements on a rooftop, like the FCC warning signage and access protection for the roof. The roof is not used for general purposes, so there's really, there's no one up there recreating or gardening, as you might see on some rooftops. So that's important in terms of compliance. But getting to the RF emissions, and I understand completely, because I've been doing this well over 20 years, of the exemptions of the federal rule, we did ask for 3 things specific to help me confirm and understand the rooftop and the near field environment that would be presented by these antennas. One of those is the transmission power. These antennas both receive and they transmit. Signals go 2 ways to them in the amazing science of wireless telecommunications. We did ask for a specific rooftop radio frequency analysis, and also one that will extend to the near field of these antennas. So these antennas are not that far from the roof line, as you saw in that map and those photo simulations that were on the screen a couple minutes ago. But we want to see where that compliance point is. And I can tell you, based on experience, doing the calculations, doing the modeling, and also going into the field and taking readings, that generally within a few feet from those antenna faces, there will be compliance with the health-based standard. For better or for worse, I want to see that, and I want to understand and be able to communicate to this board and the public what that's all about. Some of the other things we asked for are going to be with regards to the visuals and the architecture, confirming that there's no lighting needs in terms of this. Also some vendor sheets on temporary lighting that would be on the roof if anybody needed to do a roof time visit to adjust any of the equipment. Let's see what else. Alternate sites I mentioned, a revised view shed map with the recognition that this application is so close to one of the historic districts, the Warren Street Historic District. What I also want them to evaluate is stealth screening. So these antennas, as you saw in the simulations, they're white. They jut out at you when you saw the existing versus the proposed photo, same scale with the superimposition of those antennas. There's certainly means and methods of stealthing or screening those antennas. So that's something that we discussed with the applicant during the site visit. I hope that's part of their response that they would put in. And there's a lot of technical information to back this up. Really understanding the locations, the heights, and the distance of all the proposed Verizon antennas and sites in the area, including on the other side of the river. And more information in terms of coverage maps. There are different frequencies that they're licensed to operate out, and they're different signal strengths in vehicle and building or open air. Those would all develop different coverage patterns that justify a need for a new facility. A site reconnaissance was listed. We did that on the 20th. It was very helpful for me to understand the character of the lower downtown area and the specific site in general. But I also asked a couple other things for Verizon to give you what their plans are for the city. Are they going to be coming back in a year? I've looked at the application. They are not proposing 5G operations. In fact, in the Hudson Valley, there really hasn't been any significant rollout by Verizon of 5G operations. So that's not being proposed as part of this. And I guess one thing that came up importantly on the site visit is the applicant's interface with SHPO the State Historic Preservation Office. So we were told that there's been filings, there's perhaps a determination by that agency, and we would certainly want to see that determination and see the correspondences that are associated with that. We would like to see the back and forth dialogue and see how SHPO at least would weigh in on this building and what's being proposed. So that's a little bit of an introduction. I hope that was helpful and not too long-winded. And I'll turn it back to the chair.
I have a question for you because I
Sure.
never spoke with you. Okay, in all of everything you said, did you, because you said it, but I may not have understood it clearly. Would the need for a site also include them telling us what all of the areas that will benefit from these towers, antennas, and the percentages?
Yeah, I know that's something that your code and other municipal codes, obviously you want to be accommodating service in your community. But from a federal standpoint, signal doesn't stop at boundaries. And that's something that municipalities can't demand or regulate specifically. But in looking at this site and talking to Verizon's radio frequency engineer at the site visit, and understanding where some of the existing sites are, this rooftop facility proposed is predominantly going to serve the city of Hudson boundaries from the waterfront to the lower downtown. And that's based on capacity and use. These sites are not static in terms of coverage. Traffic, call and data traffic, people using not only their cell phones, but also their tablets, their computers, downloading data, whatever other bells and whistles are going on. Those coverage from each cell site is not static. It could differ on a weekday in the winter versus a really busy autumn day with tourists in the city. This may become, need to work harder during different times and different demands. But to answer your question, the coverage here is predominantly going to be on this side of the river in the city of Hudson boundaries.
Okay, that's the predominant. I would like to know the other areas also.
We'll see that with the coverage maps they provide.
John, I'd like John to speak.
There's a coverage map in the packet that was sent. And from the looks of it, the proposed new area where it's expected to be is the village of Athens. Was there any, and this is for Verizon, did you look at places in Athens or on the other side of the river?
Because when they first came out,
where it would also benefit Hudson?
And I'd like to add to that when this was first proposed to us, we were told that this is to benefit Hudson.
Right.
And
the shading on the map shows that most of the new, it was a proposed new, is the shading here, and it's mostly the village of Athens. So
when it first came out and they put out 105-page something, which I tried to go a day, but I wasn't going to print it. It did say Athens.
Well, it's the Athens project. Yeah, that's the name of it. Yeah.
Primary.
So were there? I guess the question is, were there alternate sites looked at, and what were they?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have to have that answer right now, but I think we want the documentation on that.
I agree.
And I can just speak to that very briefly,
I want the documentation on it.
Sure. We do have, as was shown by the board member, we do have coverage maps as part of the application, which do identify a gap in the coverage in the city of Hudson. And the facility at this location, which is located, it was located in careful consideration of the hierarchy that you have in your zoning law, which has a preference for co-location on existing structures. So based on where that gap in coverage was located, the physical requirements of where the antennas had to be located to fill that gap, there was a site selection process that was undertaken. I know that we did look at the other building across the street at one point in time as a potential location. That's not an available site at this time.
We don't know that, and that was one of my points. So let me go to you, Mike. You know, Bliss Towers was originally approached. You know, the Verizon people talked a little bit about that on the tour that we took. You know, I think there was some confusion about the potential of Bliss Towers being torn down or not there anymore, and then they didn't get back to Verizon, so it was disbanded as a possible location. I'd like to be able to see the communications on that. I'd like some clarification, because I think that Bliss Towers, well, I want to go back to John's first question, best question, I think really is where in Greene County was, you know, the paperwork on where, what buildings were considered in Greene County. And then second to that is, I would like to see the, you know, the communications with Bliss Tower, because I still think that that's a possible consideration. And, you know, at our walkthrough, the comment was made by one of the Verizon people who I think isn't here tonight, that, you know, it would cost too much money to go back to the Bliss Tower location. But, you know, that's not our problem. Our problem is, you know, trying to accommodate Verizon at the same time, you know, making good choices, helping to make good choices for the city of Hudson.
And we, you know, I can go back and consult with the applicant on this, but my understanding was that, you know, that site was not made available with a long-term lease that would serve our objectives.
Because there was some rumor or some possibility of it being torn down, but I mean, I know Tom's here. I'm pretty sure that if I'm wrong, Tom will speak up. That building is not being torn down, and I think that it should be looked at again.
And we did originally, I believe, you know, have an application, you know, prepared for that site, but, you know, because of the, you know, inability to have the long lease that would be required to have a facility at that location, we looked to the code, we looked for alternative locations that would fit the requirements to fill this gap coverage. And so the application,
Bliss Tower location, I hear you, and I see the tap dancing. The Bliss Tower location is one of the, by definition, is a #1 priority building. It qualifies as a #1 priority on existing towers or other structures on city-owned properties. So I believe that makes that that the Bliss Towers is a #1 priority, whereas the current desired location is on an existing tower or other structure on other property in the city. That's a #2 location. We also, again, are asking for what specifically was looked for over in Greene County, whereas John pointed out, your own map shows where
Exhibit 2
is going. I'm sorry, John, that was who?
That was me, Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2.
And one thing that I'd like to just make clear is that, you know, the proposed new area here includes Athens Village. It shows no proposed new area in the city of Hudson.
Right.
And, you know, the city of Hudson would also benefit if the tower was put in Athens, you know, and to know that you exhausted all possibilities would my mind an awful lot, you know, because Bliss, two buildings across the street from one another, you know, it doesn't show that you went very far in looking for places to put it. So, you know, please.
I want to throw a question out. Well,
As has been threatened to us by I don't see him here tonight. A tower can be built. Well, a tower can be built over in Greene County then. I mean,
you know, I'd just like to just quickly, you know, the board's own consultant has identified that this facility is going to primarily serve locations in the Western Hudson area.
well, I'm asking our consultant to look at that again. I don't know that Mike, so.
Yeah, and it's not the only facility. I'm commenting on just what's being proposed right now, but part of our comments are doing the due diligence on alternate sites.
And this is my first time ever talking to you.
I have a question.
Thank you, Mike, for also requesting all of that SHPO information, because I really believe that we need to see those documents. Every single document, SHPO signing off on this, all communications with SHPO.
Yeah. If I could just add something, I think to John's comment as well. The site acquisition process that Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile go through, they do spend time looking at viable properties where coverage could be provided, analyzing codes, whether it's in Hudson or Athens or anywhere else where they need to get coverage or capacity out. And what's annoying to me is there's artifacts in this application. You see exhibits that are labeled as Athens. Like the name of the site is labeled as Athens, which tells me that that's probably the first place that they went to initially, was over in Athens. And it also tells me that, like many applications do, before they're actually submitted to be processed or submitted to a planning board, the name of the site, the region of the site, as first defined, in this case Athens, sometimes sticks with it, even though the application may move to a neighboring municipality or other area. And it's only a name that's in the Verizon network system, right? Because they have to log things by number and by name, as they do. So the request by John and Laura, I think, for due diligence is really important to this. I think we want Verizon to be transparent with how this started. If they did look at Athens, which, by the way, I suspect they did, because the names on some of these things are Athens.
The map,
but right now, this is an application in the city of Hudson, and that's what we need to understand.
Mike, the map is that John showed is Athens. It's not just the name. The map is. And again, it's been said to us several times, almost in every meeting, except for this one, because now I'm saying it. Verizon has said, well, we could just build a tower. I don't think you'd like that. Isn't this better than that? Well, did they say that to Athens? Because they also could just build a tower over there if they don't have the top of a building that's the right height.
This might be a clue.
Oh,
You're not going to be able to see this, but it's Exhibit 2. And the antenna shows Athens Village
Sure does.
Yep, we can see it.
as, so my assumption is that it was started over there and then moved over here. And we
Because
need
it-
to know,
it
that's
couldn't
all,
find
simple as
a tall
that.
enough building. Build a tower over there. I'm sorry, Clark, you were going to say something.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt this conversation, so I'm glad it hopefully answered some questions, or at least got that whole topic fully covered. Here's my question, looking at some of the public commentary, which of course we're gonna get to. My understanding is that the owner, and I'm gonna start with a little editorial. I'm a little disappointed that the ownership isn't represented here when it's their building and their project, and clearly there's a lease between Verizon and Providence Hall, whatever entity it is that owns that. I don't know it off the top of my head. My question, if it is a nonprofit organization, which I believe it is, and more power to them, they're getting a federal tax break for providing low-income housing, very common, and it's a great thing that they can provide that. However, there's my understanding there's going to be an article of incorporation for that nonprofit. Clearly, you apply to the feds, and the feds review it, and they give you a tax break. And in that article of incorporation is going to say, here's what we're going to do as our sort of now legal nonprofit entity. And I'm assuming that says provide housing, but my question is, does it say provide telecommunications equipment? And I can probably guess it does not say that. So I think there's a key question here of whether the entity that is, again, not here, but should be here, can answer the question, as they are receiving federal subsidy and the federal policies to support them. Their article of incorporation, does it include citing telecommunications equipment?
So that's an important question for the entity, but it's not an issue before this board. The issue before this board is just processing the application.
I would disagree with that, because that could clearly affect housing in the city of Hudson if they lose their nonprofit status.
Right, but this board does not look into the formation of LLCs or any other entity that comes before the board. That's a private matter. I mean, you can make that request to, I'd have to think of whatever agency in the state oversees not-for-profits. It might be the Attorney General.
My question here is whether their nonprofit status allows them to cite telecommunications equipment. It's very simple. And I think the
I know, and I'm saying it's not an issue before this board.
Question.
Okay.
But Clark, could you, Victoria is saying that's not within our purview. Could you explain why you think it is? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not following how that relates to us since Victoria.
Well, I guess, maybe I'm beating around the bush here, but I wonder if it would affect their nonprofit status if they do something outside their
and so you're saying that Verizon could lose its contract because of that.
Could affect housing in the city of Hudson.
I'll just admit, we agree with the position of the planning board's attorney that, questions regarding, the private contractual arrangements between Verizon and the property owner, are outside the jurisdiction of this planning board.
Well,
the planning board is called on to review the application that we've submitted for a use that's permitted under your zoning law. Obviously, you need to meet the standards under your zoning law in order to demonstrate that we are entitled to that approval. That this is a matter of zoning. It's a matter of you have an established criteria in your law, a set of requirements that are very thorough that we understand that we need to comply with. We received comments from your consultant, and we are going to supplement our application to provide that additional information because it is important to this board to review to be able to determine that we meet the criteria of your zoning law.
Okay.
That is the jurisdiction of the planning board. It's to review our applications for land use approvals.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, even though I was asking Clark a pointed question, that his concern about our citizens having that live in the towers, having a place to live is important. But Betsy, board, do you think that we're ready to open this up to public comment now?
I actually would ask that. I think the public has been incredibly patient here.
Thank you, public.
Thank you very much. So you all know how to raise your hand, and Shaheem can call on you. Go to under your participants tab, find your name.
Glenn, I think there's a process by which you raise your hand. Maybe Betsy, you can explain that again.
Go under your participants tab, click on that. You get a list of participants. I see Michael Kohlberg's hand raised. For instance, Michael, Shaheem, would you let Michael Kohlberg start us off, please?
Also, just if you're on the phone and not on a computer, it's *9.
*9. Thank you, Victoria. And a reminder to the public, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And Clark, if you would do our timing, please.
Oh, sure.
Okay, Michael, thank you.
Betsy. Thank you. I have a question. So in my reading of this, I did not see any mention of 4G or 5G mentioned in the application. It was a request to put telecommunications equipment on site. So some of the language, however, infers 5G. For instance, as far as I understand, the term of art modulation is not used with reference to 4G, but it is used with 5G, and that is sprinkled throughout the application. So that's one thing. So I don't think that there's a great deal of good faith on a lot of levels. It's what it is. And the other thing is, once permission is given, doesn't the site become a base station? And isn't it true that after that, there is no need to return for permission after that in order to shift out the equipment as new equipment becomes available or desired? So this, it seems, is our one opportunity to go pause. And I know that there is a lot of there are requirements. One of the things that I don't see listed anywhere is, I don't think that there is a fall zone at Providence Hall. And a fall zone is the area that surrounds it, and it's required. So that in case something topples off, people aren't hurt. So that, it's not available at that site. That's one thing. I also don't see, I don't know whether it's happened, but this is an old building, an older building, and I don't know how much it can handle structurally, the roof. How does one make a decision about how much weight the roof can handle? I can see that kind of explanation flowing forth at the moment based on whatever it is that these little drawings are. But if they never need to come back as they add further equipment, I don't see how that weight can be accommodated, because as their attorney said, everything is kind of bespoke. So you can't guess what the weight is going to be of a piece of equipment that is designed site specifically. So that should really be part of the consideration here. Is the building strong enough? Additionally, I could go on and on, but I know that we're not allowed to base any consideration on the health and safety aspects of this. However, I want to mention it because of liability. I think that the FCC says that telecommunication companies are shielded from liability flowing from any damage.
That's 3 minutes, Betsy.
Okay. Thank you.
You want me to respond? I'm the Verizon engineer.
Yes, Rick, go ahead.
Okay, how are you? Yeah, so everybody, my name's Rick Sahaki. I'm the RF engineer for Verizon in this location. Mike, as you were saying, the modulation, all technology is modulated, whether it's 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. The modulation scheme is basically how the technology works. For example, we modulate different things differently than AT&T does, than Sprint does, but everybody has their own form of modulation. We have plans. It's a 4G site. We have no immediate plans to do 5G. And if we ever did do 5G, we would have to go through this process again and reapply to upgrade the site. We can't, it's not just, we don't just build the site and then do what we want to it. Everything has to be approved every time that anything's changed. But like I said, right now we're applying for 4G and we have no plans to do 5G at this location.
You might suggest that that's made very, very clear in the application, that this is for a 4G antenna installation, period, because I understand what Michael's saying. It's not clear from the application. I had the same question. And it wasn't until I spoke to you at our site visit that I understood that it was for 4G.
Right, okay. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
That's not a problem.
Roman, just quickly for anyone who's watching, section 284-8 of the city code does require a special use permit for any modifications to an existing wireless telecommunications facility. So anything that's going to be a visible modification would have to come back to the board.
A follow-up question for Rick. Michael had mentioned the fall zone. You want to elaborate, reply to that?
Yeah, so actually that would be more of a question for Steve Matthews. But we do have, basically all of it has to go through, we go through a company called SiteSafe. Basically goes through everything is evaluated as far as, RF emissions, locations, whether there's barriers needed, things like that. But Steve, I think you can probably elaborate a little bit better on that one. I think he's muted. Steve Matthews needs to be unmuted. There you go.
Would you please unmute Mr. Matthews? Steve Matthews.
I'm good. So right, the fall zone usually in the industry is related to towers. So if you have a standard, whether it's a monopole or a self-support tower, it has a fall zone associated with it. So if the structure fell over, there would need to be no residences or property lines or buildings within the height of the tower. Since this is located on an existing building, a fall zone is sort of not applicable. However, the antenna mounts are designed to stay on the roof. We have performed a full structural analysis. The antenna mounts are designed for all wind forces and seismic forces. They won't fly off the building. The building does have enough capacity to support the antennas. I'm not sure if those reports were submitted to the board, but we did prepare them probably a couple months ago. So that analysis has been completed. The building is safe. The antenna mounts will stay on the roof. The equipment platform will stay on the roof. So everything is structurally sound.
Thank you, Steve. I think I'd like to move on to Alexandra Semchenko. Sam?
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Betsy. Well, I'm going to just skip to continuation of the discussion, provisos for lightning strikes or surge protectors or anything like that. In Prison Alley and Providence Hall area, there are incredible wind gusts. In fact, just 2.5 weeks ago, a lot of trees were down in the area. The Hudson cleanup crews are well aware of the splitting of the giant tree on First Street. And right in front of Providence Hall, it took off half of a tree right in front of Providence Hall. And I don't see anything in the plans that would ensure that there was prevention of lightning strikes or doing anything to ensure that this is not a place that will attract fire, because this is a building that houses primarily disabled and elderly people. And I think it's just really, really kind of idiotic proposal to have such risk on top of a population that's unable to get out of the building if something were to happen. Also was curious as to what Verizon is going to do to ensure the safety of the tenants on the uppermost floors, because there is secondary lobe electromagnetic radiation that will come down. And I know we're not talking about that, but still prevention should be put in place so that there is no exposure. Whether we don't have to talk health and safety, but they have to do something to ensure that the people who are living in the top floors are not exposed. Okay. If who will be checking on the emissions and making sure that they continue to be within the acceptable limits? Wanted to know that. And just, I'm trying to zoom along as fast as I can here. And as you know, I was sent along in response to previous discussions about the view shed or whatever around the buildings. I sent along pictures because Verizon did not take into consideration what the site would look like without foliage, number one. Number two, they did not take into consideration what the view looks like from Prison Alley, or from First Street, or from Second Street without foliage, or from Front Street. Exactly. So I have a lot of issue with the reports of the photographs and the simulations because they're not accurate.
Sam, do you have those visualizations?
I sent them on to you. You can click, there's a link, a zip file that
right. The public hasn't seen those. Is there a way?
No. I guess I could share my screen.
They will be, board, it depends. They will be loaded up onto the city website.
Okay.
We're trying to get the backlog of things up there, Sam.
Okay.
And I think if they are not by our meeting 2 weeks from now, I would like to invite Sam to do a special presentation of those with an extended timeline for that.
Okay, thank you. I'd really appreciate that. Okay. And also, if I could just say that from my point of view, I really am in keeping with what everybody else has been saying. Why can't we find another site that mitigates risk? Why cannot there be a site that would not impact the population of downtown Hudson in this way? I have to think that due diligence was not spent to find an alternative locations in order to, cover the area that Verizon wants to cover. I appreciate their need, but I really don't think that enough time was spent. And also, just in closing, I know that they're supposed to provide the public with notice, and some of us received our certified letters about this public hearing, and some of us did not. And that's against the rules, folks. They're supposed to provide it to everybody, and they did not.
That's time, Betsy.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam. We'll be in touch about uploading all that information to the city website.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. So Teresa, I know you have a question, but I'm going to ask that we go to Mr. Roney next.
No, I don't have a question.
Glenn Roney. Okay.
I was another.
Glenn, Shaheen will unmute you. There you are. Hi,
Can you hear
Glenn.
me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I'm not a good public speaker, so this morning I wrote a 2-page memo, and I think I can finish that within the 3-minute time period.
Go.
I have lived at Providence Hall for over 13 years. It is a decent place to live. Having grown comfortable here, I will say without being overly sentimental that I hope to live out my life here. However, I was very disturbed to find out only recently about Verizon's proposal to build a 4G cellular tower on the roof of the building, which I have called home for so long. I live on the top floor here, the 5th floor. To think that this monstrosity will be a scant 10 feet above my head causes me a great deal of anxiety and concern. Would Verizon think of erecting such a dangerous radiation emitting tower on top of a school? Then why even consider building it on top of a structure that is home to over 100 elderly and or disabled people? It's almost as if they are saying that we, the people, don't count or don't matter. This is unconscionable. The entire community of Hudson should rally to the cry of, not on my roof, not in my backyard, not anywhere near a residential community, especially in such a non-gentrified, impoverished, almost forgotten area of the city. People know about Verizon, perhaps not so much about the corporation which owns Providence Hall. It's called Arbor Management, and it's headquartered in the state of Delaware. Delaware is called the corporate state because corporations pay no corporate taxes there. Arbor Management owns 2 properties in town, Providence Hall and Schuyler Court, both on Lower Columbia Street. They also own several dozen other Section 8 properties throughout the entire Northeast region of the country. Between these 2 local, extremely lucrative properties, Arbor Management rakes in almost $2 million in income per year, and they pay no property taxes. In essence, they have a free ride. They don't contribute to the local economy or tax base. Providence Hall is owned and run by a for-profit corporation. It is not a charity. Simply taking a cursory look at the numbers, one can see that this is an extremely profitable business for Arbor Management. And now by prostituting their building, i.e. renting out the roof to Verizon, we see the ugly, selfish motive of corporate greed. Arbor Management gives hypocritical lie to the very name of the building. There is absolutely nothing providential about this insatiable lust for ever increasing profit, especially when the health and safety of thousands of people are at stake. Shame on them, and shame on anyone in authority who condones this proposal. I can remember 20 years ago when this community rallied and fought against the cement plant. Against seemingly overwhelming odds, this town stated unequivocally, not in our backyard. And we, the people, won that battle. Let us come together once more in the same spirit of togetherness and defeat this monstrous proposal. Let not the unholy alliance of corporate greed and hypocrisy be consummated. Thank you. And with that, I yield the floor.
Glenn, thank you very much.
Betsy?
Yes.
Will we have a copy of Glenn's statement?
I've got a copy written out here. Who should I give it to? Sam?
Sure, or you can email it to me, Glenn.
I can't afford technology. I don't have internet service. I don't have an email address.
Okay, yes, please give it to Sam and I'll make sure to get it from her.
Thank you.
Thank you very
She'll
much.
get it tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Dunn has his hand up. Hi, Steve, you're, okay, good evening.
I'm here.
Go ahead. 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't know much about this project. I looked at the visuals. The antenna sticking up didn't shock me from an aesthetic standpoint. but number one, can they be further masked? That's point number one. Point number two, Bliss Towers came up, and I was thinking of that myself, and thank you, Laura Margolis, for mentioning Bliss Towers. And maybe that's impractical, or it's too late, or et cetera, et cetera. But if they were on top of Bliss Towers, I don't think anybody would see them. And third, given that we haven't seen the full panoply of visuals from Prison Alley, et cetera, I assume the public hearing will be continued until we have a complete package and we can further comment. And I understand you can't deal with the health and safety issues. That's beyond your jurisdiction. So I won't comment on that, and I have absolutely no knowledge anyway. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. And just, you may have joined this meeting a little tiny bit late, just to reassure you that we have already extended the public comment period to our next meeting on November 10th automatically. So everybody, hopefully by then we will have everything that we need from the applicant. We will continue to extend this until we do. And that the
Thank
public.
you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, yes. You're welcome. Thank you, Steve. Shaheem, anyone else out here that I am not seeing who has their hand raised?
I can see.
I am not seeing anyone else.
Me neither.
It's just a chat question. Ms. Phillips, how do you spell your first name?
It's Allison, Alllyson.
All right. Okay.
Sam, we really weren't going to allow multiple comments tonight, but is there something that we?
Well, no, I was just going to reaffirm that I was hoping that the proposal could be rejected just based on the fact that it's incomplete, and that was one of the according to the city's guidelines anyway. It says, you know, if the application does not meet stated requirements and is incomplete, it can be rejected. And I'm just a little in awe, I guess, why they're being allowed to add more and pump it up or whatever. But it's, to me, it was a sloppy proposal and incomplete. And I think, yeah, that's in essence, I think you're extending them a lot of leeway.
Victoria,
you have a comment on that?
It generally violates due process to reject the application without, you know, giving them the opportunity to supplement their application. And Mr. Musso has provided them with a list of additional materials needed. I mean, Craig must have determined it was at least minimally complete for it to even get before this board.
I do want to follow up with that though, and I guess Allison, are you the representative this evening from Verizon?
I'm from the law firm Young Summer.
Okay, and you work with Scott Olson, correct?
Yes, yes.
All right, so Scott Olson came to us in a pre-application hearing, and I thought that I made it clear to Scott that it incredibly important for this board and for this town was that we understood what sites had been examined, what the evaluative criteria were for site selection, and how you determined that this was the optimal site to select and move forward on. And I think a lot of the concerns that were expressed tonight, and I think that I'm sensing exist in the Zoom space that we're in, really could have been improved. Our conversation could have been improved if the applicant or your firm had actually done what we asked for. And you know, to Sam's point, and I understand due process, right? It's imperative that we give an applicant a fair amount of time to develop materials and to make a proper submission. But we asked explicitly that site evaluative criteria, site selection, alternatives be forwarded to the board at the time of the application. And, you know, I think that I can just suggest to you strongly that you don't make the same mistake again next month.
Thank you, Larry. And this includes Bliss Towers.
It's not going to work here unless you have transparency with the town, right? I mean, not with this board and not with the citizens here. You've got to be really clear about what you did, how you decided it, how you eliminated other sites, and then we'll work. You know, if you do that in a transparent and I think rational way, if indeed this is the only place this could go, I believe that people will understand your argument. But if you simply say, oh yeah, we looked at other sites and this is the best one for us, that's not, I would highly dissuade you from doing that.
And we will provide that additional information with the response to Mr. Musso's comments and also the additional comments that were raised here tonight.
Good, thank you.
I appreciate that's important to the board.
Okay, seeing no further comments tonight and knowing that we will continue this public hearing at our November 10th meeting at 6 p.m. when we will, I'm not sure that this will be first on the agenda, but it may well be. I am going to suspend the public hearing for tonight. I will look forward to getting information from you, Sam. And we will, and please, by all means, continue to communicate with us. Send us information. Once the city email is working, I think it is again today. It will all be available for everybody to see. And I thank you all very, very much on the Verizon people, Allison, and the public here and the board for your thoughtful comments. We really appreciate it and we take them all very much to heart from all sides. So with that, we'll postpone the public hearing until next month. And board, we need to stay on to do some more business here. So for the rest of you.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Do we need to vote to keep the public hearing open or do we just know that we're doing it?
I announced at the beginning that this would be continued until next month.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right, everyone, thank you very much. And we will see you again soon. Board, stand by. Victoria, thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Care. All right. So this, moving on with our agenda board, we need to review and approve bills.
Let's see, I have a question.
Yes.
It goes back. When they talk about that we cannot talk about safety and stuff, does that mean the public too?
Well, it just means that the public can say whatever they want, Teresa.
Voice their opinions about their safety and stuff. It's just that
absolutely
we can't make our decisions based on that or bring it up. So that wasn't explained because a lot of people say, oh, I know I can't, but you as the public, yes, you can. That wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
No, that we can't take it into consideration.
Right, but the public, I don't think understood that they could. And I think next week we need to bring that out. The board can't, but the public can say anything they want.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. I just think that people, a
lot of people said, oh, I can't talk about this. And I wanted to say, yes, you can, but I wasn't sure. So I'm waiting.
Point well taken. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just as a point of order, it's very hard to hear all these very heartfelt things that we can do nothing about because we're so constrained by the FCC, which is why I thought at the beginning to say, you know, here we are, we'll listen to you, but we cannot take it.
The public can do way more than us in this situation. I've seen it with the public, probably not with the board, but the public can.
It's a very good point, and I will make sure they understand that. I will write myself a great big red note. Thank you, Teresa.
Did I do something wrong?
Okay. All right. Well, once again, I was stymied today, and I never, you all know I never like to do things at the last minute, but I finally got the bill situation worked out. It's been a nightmare. But as it turns out, it is not difficult at all once I finally got everyone to send me what they needed. So I do have 2 invoices from Barton and LaJudas that need to be approved. One is for, well, both of these are for the Colarusso Dock and Hall Road review. One for $268 and one for $134. These are both for Colarusso review. There is escrow in place for these bills. The escrow account has been filled up. So do I have a motion to approve?
Laura moves.
Was that Laura? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Teresa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I will get the vouchers off to the city tomorrow. Then Rodenhausen, Shale, and Polidoro, we need to get Victoria paid. There are several invoices here because they go to different projects that she's been working on. So the first, get down to it, 735 Columbia Street. You'll recall when Galvin, I'm sorry. This is the brewery project. She has submitted invoices in the amount of $882 for that. I believe there's still plenty of money in that escrow account. They will not get their plan stamped. If that's not the case, they'll have to fill it up to pay her bill. But I believe they're fine. The second is 75 North 7th Street. A bill for $367.50.
That is the Galvin, right?
That is the Galvin, yes. So she had several hours of working on that. 119 Columbia, that is this project for Verizon, $588. So those are the projects she's been working on for which we need to pay her from escrow. So do I have go ahead, Laura.
I approve a move.
Oh, yes, great, Laura. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dawn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Betsy, I had a question actually about that. I know that you and I had discussed when we were looking at Mike's proposal for Verizon, whether it was possible to return to the applicant for additional funds if we bumped up against the $8,000 limit.
And we will. And we can, I confirmed that with Victoria.
Okay, great.
So yes, they will need to replenish. And I, just to let you know, there's a, when it's an FCC rule that you can always ask them, that you can only ask for up to $8,500. However, Victoria confirms that the Verizon would continue to have to replenish escrow until the review is done.
Okay.
Yep. So we're all set there. I just saw Victoria's little thumbs up. We're getting you paid.
Betsy, are we going to have a special session with Mike Musso?
Well, we actually, Teresa, he was with us on the site visit that you weren't able to attend. We can have, as we get further down the road, let's hear the public hearing concerns as we go along, and we'll get these reports back, and Mike will be reporting at every meeting for us what Verizon has submitted, what he has reviewed. And if we feel that we need a special workshop meeting with him at the end, I'm sure we can arrange that.
Also, he's very, I emailed him a couple of quick questions, and he's very good at getting back.
No, he responds within the day. He's amazing. Yeah. He's really been responsive and very thoughtful in his responses too.
I think we also have his phone number and
I saw it in his bio.
Yeah. And I've had to call his cell phone on the weekend He is extremely accessible.
Okay, because
I would just, I can't help, I have to add. He's very accessible. If you're gonna have conversations outside of the meeting though, you should get it in writing so it becomes part of the record. Because we don't want everyone to have side conversations and then the record doesn't show that you had those deliberations.
So
Victoria, by including this in the minutes, is that sufficient?
Yeah, including it in the minutes is the right thing to do.
Just for the record, my weekend conversation with him was about his proposal, right? We hadn't hired him yet.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, I didn't want to be clear that.
I know you were negotiating that with him, but I just wanted to remind everyone else of the open meetings law parameters that we're working.
Okay.
put it in after you have the meeting with him.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We'll make sure that it's in the minutes. All right. So the last thing on our agenda actually wasn't on our agenda at all, but it was several questions that have come to me. And that is that we have a new young ACE reporter in town working for the Register Star, who has reached out to several of us individually for comment. My personal feeling about talking to reporters, first of all, I told her that we would never speak to her about an open application. She had asked me about the 735 Columbia Street, the brewery project. And I just said, I'm not at liberty to speak to you about any pending matter before the board. And then she asked about the last meeting when before we spoke about Colarusso, we all reaffirmed the fact that we don't have any bias or conflict of interest. And she wanted me to opine on that. I believe she also reached out to Larry about that. We should not be speaking to the press about that. If she wants any more information, she may go to Victoria. I will not.
She needs to identify herself as press too, I think. Did she always identify herself as press?
Yes, to me.
Okay.
I can't speak to her comment or her email to Larry or I believe Clark too. She reached out to you for something, a question about.
That was just a technical question, but
don't answer it.
I figured as much. I did not do
that. I just would recommend that we don't do that. This again, if she's asking secret questions or she's asking about anything that's pending before this board, I just think we wade into troubled water. So please don't speak to her. If she has a question, she can call Victoria.
Great.
And if it's a non-escrow matter, she can call me and I'll just tell her the same thing, that we don't speak about things that are not on our, that are before us. Okay, so that, she may continue to email you all. I would just ignore them or say, call Betsy or call Victoria. Take yourselves out of the loop. Okay, that is it. So unless there's something else we need to discuss tonight, may I have a motion to adjourn? John?
Yes, I make the motion. So moved.
And may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you,
All
Larry.
right.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to stay on this longer? No.
No.
Meeting's adjourned. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much,
Later.
Betsy.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.